I'd like you to be a part of a simple, harmless experiment. But since this is a podcast, not a science lab, you'll need to use your imagination. Imagine that I've led you into a dark room. The only thing you can see is the faint outline of some sort of chair in the center of the room. I lead you to the chair and have you take a seat. Even though it's dark, you can tell that the chair has a special headrest that sort of comes up around the sides of your face. I ask you to lean all the way back into the headrest for the entire experiment. The experiment is a simple visual test. So relax, observe whatever you can, and then I'll ask you some questions at the end. After a moment or so, a warm, glowing light silently comes into your view on the left. It moves across your field of vision and then disappears on your right. A short while later, the light reappears again on your left, moves across your field of vision in the same manner as before, and then again disappears on your right. And this happens one more time. Now, I'd like you, using only the information you have available, to not just describe what you've seen, but to try to explain what you've seen. How would you explain physically, mechanically, etc., what just happened? The most intuitive answer would be that the light is either on some sort of track or is being physically moved around you in a clockwise manner, somehow remaining completely silent in the process. Thank you so much for your acute skills of observation. The experiment is now over. The lights slowly come on and you stand up and look around. The room, you find, is completely empty except for the chair and the light. The light is actually mounted on a post behind the chair and cemented into the floor. The chair you were sitting in was on a rotating section of the floor, which rotates counterclockwise so smoothly, so quietly, so slowly that it was imperceptible. Your mind is blown, right? The effect would be identical had it been exactly how you imagined or predicted. A light moving around you clockwise while you sat stationary in the chair. But the cause would be completely different. Your instinctive, intuitive, common sense understanding tricked you. Now, hopefully in the 2 previous episodes of this podcast, I was able to make the case for how important resilience is for our lives. But Navy SEAL and Doctor of Philosophy Eric Greeton says there's a significant threat to your ability to both have and grow resilience. He says it this way, quote, "Feelings lead to actions, which leads to identity," end quote. He says the trap in our culture is that we teach people to put feelings first. We tend to assume, without really thinking about it, that everything starts with our feelings, that our feelings are in control. Feelings lead to action, and action then shapes our identity. But just like in our little glowing light experiment, that's an intuitive assumption made by a majority of people throughout history from all walks of life that, according to actual brain science, turns out to be wrong. Dr. Lisa Feldman Barrett is among the top 1% most cited scientists in the world for her revolutionary research on emotions. In the late 80s, her research caused her to stumble onto a realization that, as I just alluded to, has been fought tooth and nail by psychologists, theorists, and gurus ever since. Perhaps the easiest way to explain it is this. The Disney film Inside Out was completely wrong. Turns out that the idea of individual emotions or emotion circuits residing in your brain, waiting to be triggered or put to work, that's a myth. Fake news. And the science on that is incredibly well documented. Instead, there's something else happening in your brain all day long, every day, hundreds of thousands of times over. A brief warning here. I'm about to attempt something extremely dangerous. I want to try and summarize a groundbreaking, paradigm-shattering, 400-plus page neuroscience book in about 3 minutes. Please do not try this at home. I am, after all, an untrained professional. So here we go. Number 1, all your words, knowledge, past experiences, etc., all come together to create what Dr. Barrett calls concepts in your brain. Number 2, your concepts are continuously applied, driving your brain to make predictions about what is happening now and what will happen next, just like your brain made a prediction about the glowing light in our experiment. Literally thousands of predictions are launched every single moment of your life. Every prediction is then measured against information that you receive from taste, touch, smell, sight, sound, and then corrected if necessary. Number 3, your brain's best predictions then impact or drive what Dr. Barrett calls your body budget. The body needs energy to function and survive. So body budgeting is sort of like the miles to empty gauge on your car. It takes in all the information and makes a prediction about when you're going to run out of gas. All bodily movement, body functions, and even running those predictions drains your fuel. It drains your body budget. Diet, exercise, and sleep, on the other hand, replenish your fuel, your body budget. The predictive state, the current so-called miles to empty reading, is critical because it then produces what psychologists call an affect. Number 4, affect is like a super simplistic version of feelings, and it's a measure of 2 ranges, one on a vertical axis and one on a horizontal axis. The vertical range or axis measures the range between a pleasant and unpleasant feeling or sense, and the horizontal axis measures the range between a sense of calm or a sense of agitation. So your brain's predictions about miles to empty determines how you feel on these 2 axes. For example, you can feel calm and pleasant, or you can feel agitated and unpleasant, etc. Number 5, this rudimentary feeling state or affect is the key to helping your brain decide whether or not to construct an emotion instance. Yes, construct. I know it seems crazy, but emotions don't even exist in your brain until they are constructed in the moment. Your brain then selects between either an emotion or non-emotion concept. If it selects an emotion concept, then it also selects a specific, we'll call it flavor or degree of emotion, depending on the granularity of your emotional intelligence, and then a goal for that emotion concept. And finally, your brain then chooses between different instances of those concepts as to which one it should apply in the form of action. I've developed a super simple diagram of this, and it's at ericwilbanks.com in the show notes for this particular episode. The bottom line is this: nothing starts with emotions. Everything starts with your concepts. In fact, Dr. Barrett says that if you don't have concepts for a particular emotion, you will never, ever notice or recognize it either in yourself or anyone else. So your feelings don't come first. They aren't in control. Now, every decision, every action is influenced by your body budget, creating an affect, pleasant versus unpleasant, calm versus agitated. But before that can happen, your body budget needs input from concepts in order to properly predict your so-called miles to empty. So your brain is a continuously running science lab experimenting with billions of possible combinations of concepts plus sensory information plus body budget plus affect to construct emotion instances in the moment. It's literally alchemy in your brain. And the best part is that you can control those experiments, predictions, and constructions by managing the concepts. Getting back to the advice of our Navy SEAL philosopher, Eric Greitens, he says that you have to begin by asking, who am I going to be? You decide. That's the concept part. So what's next? Then you act that way. The way you act will then shape the way you feel. If you act with courage, then immediately your fears will start to shrink and you will begin to grow. If you want to feel differently, act differently. It's amazing how so many of us have gotten this wrong for so long. We've decided that feelings are these all-powerful, almost divine entities inside us, and we must bow down before them. We've come to believe that feeling a certain way demands acting a certain way. We're victims of whatever mood takes us at the moment. We're slaves to our all-powerful emotion overlords. That's the wrong way for us to think. Our actions create our feelings. As Greeton says, if you sleep for 8 hours, you feel differently than if you sleep for 2 hours. Sleeping, eating, exercising, these actions shape how we feel. Acting with compassion, courage, grace, these actions also shape how we feel. It's hard, but it doesn't need to be complicated. Start with concepts. Decide who you want to be, then act that way. In time, you'll become the person you resolve to be. Think, then act, then your brain will learn how to construct the supportive feelings. The order should never, ever be assumed to be in reverse. Science has already proven that the brain doesn't work that way, and neither does real life. If I believe it does, I'm living a fairy tale. I'm deluding myself, I'm being deluded, and I'm deluding others. And so are you if you share those beliefs. So we need to change our concepts. If you really want to be resilient, you need to understand and get the order right. Think, act, feel. First, change your concepts. Then discipline yourself to act on those concepts, and eventually the feelings will follow. Remember, a better mind always leads to a better life.